So this next episode is, we've done a lot. We always say this, but like, mind-blowing. This one almost needs no introduction. This guy is not only the king of Hollywood, but frankly, he's the king of creating new business models.
Yeah.
And what I loved most about this, he teaches us about how to think differently about traditional industries, how to get involved in new industries, about how to think about strategy. He talks about loyalty, but he also tells these incredible stories about some of the most famous people on the planet that no one's ever heard.
Yeah, and you may not know this person, but he's been from Ghostbusters all the way to Goodfellas. These wouldn't have happened without him.
You talk about like how he ended up.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole Saturday Night Live stuff is incredible. And at the core of all this is one thing: work ethic.
Yeah.
Incredible work ethic. I'm truly blown away.
I've never met anyone where 1 + 1 always equals 3.
Totally.
I mean, he is a master at putting things together to create. You know, he says he doesn't have any talent. It's weird. In the middle of the interview, he's like, I don't have any talent. But in many ways, he loves art. Yeah. But he's probably one of the greatest artists of all time. Okay. Not in the traditional sense, but just in his ability to spot talent, put it together, and create magic.
Okay, you're giving it all away. Ladies and gentlemen, you gotta watch this.
Yeah.
Michael Ovitz.
Started from the bottom, now the whole team here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now my whole team in. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now the whole team here. I done kept it real from the jump. Living at my mama's house,
We read this great quote, we were laughing at that early, quote from Paul Newman saying that Michael is a cross between a barracuda and Mother Teresa. We're gonna talk about Hollywood and what you built, which is legendary. We wanna start back growing up in the Ovitz house. Did you guys have Shabbat dinner? What was the relationship like around the table? Talk to us about what your childhood was like.
We grew up in a working class, blue collar neighborhood. The guy next door to us was the mailman. Guy across the street was a plumber. Next guy was an air conditioning guy. One of the families, the father was a school teacher in the 5th grade at my elementary school. And no one locked their doors. Everyone knew each other. If someone was on the block that didn't belong there, everybody knew. Kids played in the street. I didn't play much until, I just never did. I did early years, but I started working when I was about 9 or 10 years old. I had the local paper route, and I went to Hebrew school, so I had to fit all that in between 3:15 and 6:30.
Interesting. You know, one of the things we read about, two things that we have in common. I went to public high school in South Florida. I was the shortest kid in high school. I was also the youngest kid in high school. And I was class president in my 10th grade, which I think you were as well.
I was.
Which is strange. But the other thing that we thought was so interesting is that your mother wanted you to become a doctor.
Well, I don't know that it was just my mother. I think every
Jewish
that's
mother.
right, yeah.
So actually, let's pause there for a second. Why do you think that I went to law school? I practiced for all of like a second before deciding I want to be an entrepreneur the rest of my life.
You also went to law school, didn't you, briefly?
You dropped out, I think, right?
I dropped out in the 2nd year.
Why do you think Jewish mothers? We've been talking that like Jewish mothers gave us all this confidence that we can do things, but they also all want us to become professionals. Why was that? Do you think? Why is it so rampant in our culture?
I think in the 50s and 60s, I can't speak for anything but my own environment. I think that being a professional person was really important to all of them, that their children were educated, had an intellect. But it was strange because I had no intellectual education and never saw a piece of art till I was 18 years old. My grandmother and my mother told me that basically I could be anything I wanted to be. Well, my friends were never told that, oddly. It seems to be a thing between, it seems to be a Catholic and Jewish thing, especially Italian Catholics. One of my closest friends lives in London. He's an Italian. His parents told him that he walked on water. He was like Jesus. You know, my grandmother and my mother said the same thing to me.
My grandmother and my mother said the same
Anything you want to be, you can be.
That actually might be the real secret sauce to Jewish success, is the unbridled enthusiasm that our mothers gave us.
You can do anything you put your mind to.
You know, I told my parents I want to be a DJ when I was 13 years old. The next day they came home with a business card that said Harley Finkelstein DJ. And it was a silly thing. My parents didn't have a lot of money. But that gave me the chutzpah to be like, oh, I guess I'm a DJ now.
Yeah. The only time my parents didn't do something like that is when I told them I was going to be center fielder for the Blue Jays. They're like, I don't know if that's going to work out for you.
My parents discouraged anything that wasn't professional.
Right. Mine too.
They didn't even want me to be a lawyer. They wanted me to be a doctor.
Yeah.
A doctor.
Yeah, and for my whole life, I trained to be a doctor. I mean, my whole young...
Yeah.
Well, you know,
you were pre-med, I think.
You know the joke about the first Jewish president, right? First Jewish president. I mean, it's an unbelievable thing. Mrs. Goldberg, his mother, they sit her right beside the vice president. Vice president turns to Mrs. Goldberg like, Mrs. Goldberg, this is amazing. Your son, he's the first Jewish president. She's like, I know, but you know, his brother's a doctor.
But by the way, that's really true.
Yeah.
Yes.
They believe that.
That's a real
The
thing.
worst conversation I ever had in my life is when I told my father and mother that I wasn't going to go to medical school, and I dropped out of pre-med when I went to work at Fox. And it was a tough conversation.
I can imagine that.
But for me, I got bit by business.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about Fox. Let's talk about.
I want to tell you one
Please.
quick
Sure,
thing
of
to
course.
cap this off. I was fortunate enough, and I mean blessed, to be a consultant to Akio Morita, the founder of Sony. And I did a ton of business in Japan, as you may or may not know. And loved every second of it. Tokyo and Osaka too, and Kyoto are probably some of my favorite places to be, even for time off. Wow. And one day Mr. Morita asked me if I would talk to his partner. I never knew he had a partner equal to him who spoke no English and was much older than he was. And he asked if I'd meet with him. And I said, of course I'd meet with him, whatever you want, because Morita was really good to me and respectful and introduced me to everyone in Japan. And he said to me, I said, what is the meeting about so I can prepare? He said, you've been prepared your whole life. And I said, why? He said, I don't want to be disrespectful and I don't want you to take this out of context. He spoke perfect English. He said, my partner speaks no English, you'll have an interpreter. But he wants to understand what it is that Jewish businessmen have that no one else has. And he wants to talk about your mother. He wants to know what it is. What got you this repertoire of instincts and knowledge and constant pushing yourself and never stopping and no fear of failure, and what is it? And I've never forgotten that. He quizzed me over and over again. And just about 6 months ago, I was in London. I was asked to attend a dinner as a guest and speak to an issue. That issue amongst these businessmen was, what is it about Americans that makes them so entrepreneurial?
So this Big Shot thing is super fun. We're having a great time. People are loving it. It's a little expensive. Just to say it. Like, you know, at the end of the day, we are, you know.
I'm glad you said it.
We're still stingy Jews here. Like it's really quite expensive. And you and I are funding this whole thing ourselves. It's not cheap. I think at the very least, we should at least promote our tea business.
You all see the production quality.
The production quality is incredible.
Yeah.
We have an amazing staff, tons of producers, and it's a little expensive.
Yeah. So I'm obsessed with tea. I built David's Tea. I left many years ago. And Harley actually
I can't believe we're
encouraged
doing
me.
this. This is perfect.
We're doing this because you know, we have great tea, but we got to pay for Big Shot.
Perfect.
So Harley got me back into tea. I would curate these green tea collections for you. You're having trouble sleeping in the evenings. I'm like, oh, you got to switch coffee. You don't need 10 coffees a day.
I mean, if we're going to tell the story, let's tell the story.
Yeah, all right.
I had been drinking so much during the pandemic. I was by myself, obviously, like the rest of us were, and I was drinking a ton of coffee. And my anxiety was peaking. And actually, you had said you should switch off of coffee in the afternoon and move to really high-quality green tea.
The caffeine and green tea interacts differently. You don't get the big spike and crash.
It's like a calm alertness almost,
calm
right?
alertness,
Yeah.
and green tea is amazing, like really high quality green tea. And then,
But frankly, like most people, I had never had high quality green tea. Most of the tea that I had consumed in my life, it was like in a gift. I'd give a
Right.
talk somewhere, and they give me a gift box or some sort of gift package, and there'd be some like random tea
Right.
bags in there. But I had never actually had really high-end green tea. So you very kindly started curating this box of incredibly high-end, amazing green tea. And you also began to sort of, jerry-rig these accessories for me. You'd say, drop it in here for 3 minutes and then take it out, make sure it's not steaming. And you just created this incredible tea setup for me. In fact, you know this, but next to my home office, I now have a little tea area that you actually created for me.
Right.
But green tea in particular, and having you curate this tea for me was this incredible new element of my life because it allowed me to stay really energized, really focused in the afternoon without having any issue with sleeping.
And that was the inspiration for Firebelly. Finally, I was like, you're like, let's do it. I'll be your partner. So we started Firebelly Tea. Most people want to take a tea bag and dunk it in the water. And the reality is there's this rich experience you can get with tea where you take the time to make it properly, whether it's green tea, black tea, oolong tea, herbal teas. We're doing something special with Firebelly.
Yeah, so Firebelly is the highest, the best tea, and actually you got a chance to design every single accessory yourself.
Absolutely.
You went ahead and figured out, this is the best teacup, this is the best strainer for it, this is the best whisk in terms of how to make great matcha. But this is the best tea and the best tea products ever. And please buy our tea. We need a way to pay for more Big Shot episodes. So we don't need your money, but we would appreciate you buying some amazing green tea from firebellytea.com. It is not just a pitch, it is also the greatest tea ever, and it would make us really happy.
If you don't like it, we'll give you your money back.
No, we don't do that. We're not giving the money back.
Why not?
We're keeping
You're
your
gonna
money,
love it.
but you're gonna love it.
You're gonna love it.
All of a sudden, you're such a big shot. You're giving people's money back. Don't give the money
You'll
back.
give it as a gift. It makes a great gift.
It's a great gift. It's great tea. It's great accessories. You actually will really, really love it and allow us to pay for more of these Big Shot episodes. So that's our pitch, and all of you must be laughing wherever you're sitting right now watching this. We don't care. We
actually know tea well, though.
we know. I mean, we also know e-commerce well too.
Yeah, true.
So we know e-commerce. We know tea. Firebelly tea. Go buy some. Help us pay for more Big Shot episodes. So I know our audience. I know our audience. They're going to say, yeah, we love your tea. We want to buy from you. We want to support Big Shot. Is there a coupon code? Like, I'm going to get my aunt or someone in my family is going to call me and be like, I love the tea. It's really great. Can I get a discount? So is there a code we can give them?
Big Shot 15.
Big Shot 15. Okay.
Big Shot
Use
15.
code Big Shot 15 for 15% off our tea and tea accessories. And if you don't like the tea and you don't like the accessories, David will give you your money back. I will not. He will. That's it.
I'll give you your money back. I got you.
All right. I won't.
And I started the meeting, and it was all of us sitting around in suits, which is quite interesting. In London, they're still wearing suits. And I'm sitting around, and I said, okay, let's get down to it. I don't like to waste time. And I said, let's get down to what are we here for? And the guy who put the dinner together through someone else, because he was embarrassed, said, we're here because we want to understand how you do it. Not you and everyone in America.
American exceptionalism.
Yeah, that's what we want to know. I said, what business are you in? He said, well, I just lost my business. I said, great, what are you doing next? He said, I'm moving to Gstaad. And I said, is that Gstaad or Stadt? And he goes, either one.
Yeah.
I said, what are you doing there? You starting a business there? He said, no, I'm moving with my family. I said, why? He said, I failed. I said, so what?
Yeah, right.
And he said, well, I'm a failure here. I really have to get out of London.
Wow.
And I said, wow, this dinner's over.
Yeah.
And he said, what do you mean? I said, you made my point.
Mm-hmm.
I said, don't move to Stadt or you're going to die. I said, stay here. Take a few months to gather your thoughts. Get on the horse. He said, what are you talking about? He said, I failed. I said, so what? I failed 100 times. No risk, no reward.
Right. Every experience is an opportunity.
Yeah, I said, I've been fired from a public company.
Right.
Who cares?
Yeah.
I said, it was their loss, not mine. And they wrote a whole book about it. I said, get back on the horse, get your nose to the stone. Yeah. He was in a state of shock. And I moved the dinner along. I said, let's get dessert. This is a bore.
Yeah, sure.
Because this is not a question worthy of discussion. Because they kept saying, well, let's talk about it.
You're like, this is what it is. This is it. It's right here.
I said, there's nothing to
You guys
talk
take,
It's like Lee's theme of the whole show.
You guys see a tidal wave, and you take your towel and head for the shore, and we see a tidal wave, and we grab our surfboards.
Yeah. Duck under and let it go
And let's
over, and
go.
then come up the other
But
side.
Harley, I'm telling you guys, he thought I was nuts.
Yeah.
And then he got the message.
Well, but we're also, not only are we not afraid of failure and not afraid, of what comes with that, but we're not afraid to start over and start from the bottom. Like, you started at WMS in a mailroom, right? Like, you started right at the bottom of the agency world. Like, talk to us about those early days, early on, in which you took.
I'll take it a step further, Dave.
Please, yeah.
I did this Fortune Brainstorm conference, and Alison Chantel, who's a brilliant editor, asked me a very apocryphal question. She said, I don't know a lot of people who have built a career, gotten to a great place, dropped out, started another career, gotten to a great place. And in a different world, how did you do that?
Right.
And I said, I don't know, how do you not do it? Because it's second nature to me. And it's my grandmother and my mother talking.
Saying you can do this.
You can do it. So when I met Marc Andreessen in 1998, and he asked me to go on the board, and I asked him if he was really that stupid. He said, what are you talking about, dude? And I said, what do you want me on your board for? I don't know anything about tech. This is when I learned how smart he was. He said, that's why I want you on the board. He said, I want someone who has no fear in tech of the big deal guys on the board, will stand up and talk to them, and will not back down. And I went on his board 7 years ago. He and Ben Horowitz are still two of my closest friends. I respect them so much. And they changed my life because 3 years later, Marc and Ben from a remote location, and Marc and Herb Allen and Laura Andreessen had a dinner with me in New York, and I just thought I was meeting friends for dinner, and I was actually at Marc and Laura's wedding, and one of the three people that gave them a toast, Peter Thiel and I and one other guy I forgot. And I sit down, and there's no smiles, which was weird because these are fun guys that are friends. I actually introduced Marc to Herb.
Wow.
And this is about 2002. And I sit down, maybe 2003, I don't remember. They go, this is an intervention. I go, what are you talking about? I don't take drugs. They go, no, but you're wasting your life. I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, you're here in New York and you're consulting for all these people, and you need to be in San Francisco or in Palo Alto. You're wasting your life. And Marc says, you, and Ben said the same thing, you package people into product. He said, that's what we do. He said, it's the same thing. Stop consulting for all these ridiculous large companies. You're doing fine, which I was. He said, but you're not building anything.
They felt you didn't have skin in the game? Was that kind of it?
I wasn't building anything. I was getting paid fees.
Okay.
A lot of them.
No equity, though.
No, I'd get shares.
Okay, but you weren't in the arena.
You know what it was too, Harley? I got no satisfaction out of it, and they saw it.
They saw it,
because
yeah.
I'd give ideas as an advisor
Right.
and never get to the pleasure of the execution. Yeah. So I finished the dinner. They made a lot of sense. It was quite earth-shattering to me. And I left the dinner, and as I'm standing on the street, Marc says to me, you want to have breakfast in the morning? Which I said, that's weird, Marc. You're actually going to sleep tonight, because he always stays up in those days, he stayed up all night coding. And he said, well, I am staying up all night tonight, but I'm going right to do CNBC at 7:30. I'll meet you at the best breakfast in New York, the Parker Meridian. And I said, I live right next door. I'll see you at 8 o'clock. Got there at 8, and he sits down, and he said, I've doubled down on what I said. You're an idiot. You have to do this, blah, blah, blah. At 9 o'clock, 9:30, he went to the airport. I went to my apartment. I packed. I flew to San Francisco, and I rented an apartment.
Wow.
And I moved up there.
But what do you tell yourself in the moments, like you have these ups and downs, and my wife calls it Bamidbar, right, in the desert.
Calls it what?
Bamidbar, the Hebrew for in the desert, right? The 40 years in the desert. So you have these, you describe these ups and these downs and these moments where you're not getting satisfaction out of the work. You're kind of in an in-between transitory
But no one
place.
knows that except yourself.
Right. So what are you saying? I mean, Marc obviously called out something you intrinsically knew to be true. What are you telling yourself in those moments? Like, you've been through a couple of those moments in your life.
Yeah, look, one thing is I always know, I had one of my best friends in my life who passed away too young, named Michael Crichton, used to always say to me, by the way, that was one of the greatest lunches I ever had, as I put Andreessen and Crichton at opposite ends of a table, and I sat in the middle. It was like watching.
Incredible. I cannot believe what dialogue
It was the best 3 hours of my life. Two of the smartest guys I've ever met.
Cool.
And I always know, Michael Crichton used to say to me, whenever I had a problem at the agency, he always said to me, don't worry about it, there's always another rodeo. And that's his quote, there's always another rodeo. He said, there are times I've written books, they don't work, next case, I get another book. And I was having a good time, I was making money, I loved being in New York, you know, and traveling to Chicago and to LA and San Francisco for consulting gigs. But I realized I wouldn't have changed that significantly because it was comfortable for the time being. And I had come through a rough patch in the mid-90s because, you know, the guy who fired me was my best friend in my life.
He was hosting a birthday party for you, I think,
Yeah.
a week after. Or
Yeah,
something.
but he was, I mean, he was in the hospital when my children were born. Yeah. I sat at
This is Michael Eisner we're talking about.
Yeah, I sat at Cedars with him. When he had a heart attack at the Allen conference, I flew.
He had a heart attack at the Sun Valley?
Yeah.
Wow.
I flew. When I heard about it, the minute the airport opened at 5:30 in the morning, and went straight to Cedars and sat in his room for 3 days helping him because he was like out of it beyond belief. He had quadruple bypass surgery. And he and another close friend of mine who was the CFO of Disney, Gary Wilson, who I owned a boat with, convinced me to go to Disney.
Become the president.
Yeah, and to create a team like Roberto Goizeta and Don Keogh were a team, or Bob Daly and Terry Semmel. He said, I need this. It was like Tom Murphy and, what's his name? I can't believe this. He's an amazing guy. I can't remember his name. But there were teams that ran these big companies. And I was so stupid. I blocked out all the things that said to me, don't do this. And I didn't have me as an advisor.
Right.
So I did it.
Well, also, you were being offered this role. First of all, Disney is iconic. The role was supposed to be an incredibly, I mean, you were going to be in charge with Eisner.
He couldn't have done it himself because he had we were doing the ABC deal. Yeah. I actually integrated ABC into Disney.
Okay.
He wouldn't have had the time. Okay. Plus, he didn't travel.
Right.
So I was traveling to Tokyo for Tokyo Disneyland. I was on a plane every minute because I wasn't the guy with the.
But that Disney thing, back to sort of the concept of failure, and back to that, that talk you gave in London, that was a very public thing.
Right.
Is that why you felt beaten? You said you were beaten down. Did you feel beaten down, or was it the public?
No, I wasn't beaten down at all.
Okay.
There's a big difference, and I'll explain it to
Please.
you. I have a real problem with betrayal. I don't care about being beaten down. I get beat up every day, or I beat somebody up every day. That's part of life. Yeah. I don't care.
That's the Barracuda.
Yeah, I don't care. But what I care about, I mean, Paul's saying that. I treated Paul in a way, he never had a friend like me.
Yeah.
Okay? And he'd had agents before. But I cared about his life.
Yeah.
And I was in all my clients, I was in their personal lives. We had multiple clients marry and get divorces. And I helped both sides, never lost one client in the process because I cared about
Well, even people that weren't your clients. I mean, Magic Johnson had no business being at CAA,
right.
but you negotiated his NBA contract.
Well, I also put him into business with Pepsi-Cola and Sony Theaters, and started his business empire.
Incredible.
And to hit this guy wrote it in his book. He wasn't bashful about it.
I mean, you were the consummate power broker. You're supposed to be an agent, but you're brokering deals between Sony
This
and
had
Columbia.
nothing to do with power or brokering.
This was
Right.
betrayal.
Strategy.
Yeah. Well, sorry.
Talk to us about that.
Yeah.
On betrayal, I've had a thing since I was a kid, and I think it's because I'm Jewish. When I was a kid, I remember being called a kike by some kid in my class.
Yikes.
Went home and asked my dad what it meant. I had no clue. I was a kid. I was in the 6th grade. I didn't know what that meant. And this kid, my dad was a kid who grew up in the streets of Chicago, never went to high school, and he was a very tough guy. And he came unglued. Not at me.
Right.
He came unglued. He wanted to go see the kid's father. I wouldn't let him do it. And I felt this weird feeling. I was friends with this kid. And I learned quickly what betrayal was. And from that day on in the 6th grade, it's the single thing in my life I have trouble coping with. I can't cope with betrayal. And Eisner, 30 years my best friend, the betrayal was insane. Insane. All the promises out the window, finding out that he called the press, leaking things about me the week I got there.
Why do you think ultimately, with all this hindsight now, 30 years later, what do you think actually what changed for him?
You know, it's
was
a
he
question.
threatened?
It's a question I think about often, and I have no idea. I can only assume he couldn't work a full day, and I was working 15-hour days.
Oh, interesting.
If you asked me to guess, he was threatened. He was insecure. He wanted no other opinions. I remember flying in from Tokyo. This is in the book Disney Wars. And I had sold, I used to be partners with a guy named Teddy Forsman who lived in New York, very famous private equity guy. He pioneered the use of equity plus debt. And we bid, he and I, on Ziff Davis magazines. And Masu's son was the underbidder. And I'm always trying to engage. It doesn't matter what it is, I like engagement. And I stayed in touch with Masu. And I went to Tokyo, he hosted a lunch for me. I brought like 5 people to the lunch. When it was over, he was walking me to the door. And I knew from a banker that he wanted this asset badly for what he was doing. And he needed money. He also owned half of Yahoo. So we're walking to that door, and I said, you know, you still interested in Ziff Davis? I knew the answer. And he said, yes, I really like the business. I said, well, you have something I'm interested in. He said, what? I said, Yahoo. He said, for what? Why? You're at Disney. I said, we should own Yahoo because we can put our characters up on the homepage. We can start delivering entertainment. It's the future.
Wow, streaming almost.
And he said,
You're ahead of your time.
I'll sell you my shares. I need to think about it. But he said, can you get me Ziff Davis? I said, give me a day. I want to talk to Teddy. I said, we'll sell you Ziff Davis. But I'm not the principal, but I'm telling you, I'll kill myself to make this happen. So 2 things happened. I flew back to LA on an overnight flight. I was so excited I didn't even change. I went right to the office. On the way to the office, I called Teddy. I said, I can sell Ziff. He said, what do you think you can get? I said, I think I can get us from $500 to $750 more than we paid. He said, if you can do that, sell it. You have my approval, but you can't close till it's a long-term gain. So from the car, I said, great. I got to the office. I went right into Eisner's office. He was sitting there. It was about 9 o'clock. I was with one of our lead board members, Stanley Gold, and I said, Michael, you're not going to believe this. I couldn't say this over the phone because who knew who was listening. But I said, I can get us Yahoo, or half of it. And I said, it's for us. I said, it's the holy grail of starting a foundation in this revolution that's going to happen. And I'll never forget this as long as I live. He said, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. He said, everybody knows that the internet's for education and information,
Wow.
not for entertainment.
Wow.
And I said, well, I'm not sure everybody knows that, but I think a lot of people think that, and I respect your opinion. But this is going to cost us $250 million, maybe.
Take it.
I said, just inventory it.
Yeah, just take
I
it.
said, we're making $4 billion a year in revenue. This is a rounding error.
Right.
And he said, no. And I walked out of there so upset.
Was that personal, or did he really believe this
I
was
think
costing error?
I have no idea what it's
Yeah, maybe a little not created here, uninvented here syndrome.
Right, because like Bezos loves to say, like there's a one-way door and a two-way door decision, right? Like this feels like a two-way door decision. You're wrong. It's no big deal.
Dave, I couldn't tell you how this guy thought. I used to worship his creative abilities as an executive. You could count in those days the number of executives like Diller or Daley or me or Eisner that could read a script and think through, is there a movie, can it be made for a price? And then also read a balance sheet.
Right.
There were under 10 people in the business that could do that, creative and business. Yeah. I mean, when Michael Crichton pitched me a story about in a Bel Air hotel at 8:30 in the morning about 3 people in an amusement park off the coast of South America, and this amusement park happens to breed prehistoric animals.
Jurassic Park. Wow.
So, and I have to sit there and decide.
Yeah.
At CA, we were buyers, not sellers, because we packaged everything.
What do you mean you're not sellers? Meaning you guys bring it all together and then you sell the package.
We put everything together. We took the studios out of the process of development.
Yeah, well, you changed the entire leverage game.
Let's talk with CA, because CA, ultimately, we did all this research.
Let me finish this story, because I left it hanging. I'm sitting there, Crichton's pitching me a line.
Yeah.
I have to decide, one,
What's the line? The line is basically
what I just said.
Okay, just like this is it. There's going to be
What
this
do you
park,
think?
theme
What
park.
do you
What do you
think?
think?
Should I write it? I say to myself, am I going
So
to...
it's just an idea he has.
That's all he had was an idea. I said to myself, if I say to him, write it, he's going to take a long time to do it. Can it be made after he writes it? Yeah. Who's going to make it? What's it going to cost? Is it cost prohibitive? Who can make dinosaurs at that time frame in the 90s look really real so that the audience doesn't think it's Godzilla with a zipper on the back?
Right.
And is anyone going to go see it? This is all going through one part of my brain while I'm talking to him.
Right, all from a cocktail napkin.
That's the history of being an agent.
Yeah.
For us, not for anybody else, because we were the buyer. Because if we said we could make it, like a studio executive did, we just assumed someone would pay for it. That was our assumption, because the financial climate was so flush. Everyone needed product. So I said to Michael, write it. And 6 months later, he delivered the first draft of Jurassic Park. And I read it in one sitting or two. And I called him up. I said, this is the best thing you've ever done. I said, there's only one man in the world that can direct this movie and actually make it happen. And I said, it's Steven Spielberg. He said, I agree. And I called Steven and I said, I need you to, he wasn't allowed to work at night. His wife wouldn't let him. They had a lot of kids. She was very grounded and grounded him. And I said, I need permission from Kate, who was also my client, to let you read tonight. I have something quite amazing.
Even the fact that you knew how to say it to him, I need permission from Kate to let you read it, is so important.
He called me back, said, I asked her, she said, it's okay. I had the book hand carried to him. I had to be very careful not to oversell it. Because the beginning of the book, you don't realize that you're getting an education as a paleontologist. It's pretty boring. Mm-hmm. There's nothing in it. There's nothing, no dinosaurs chewing people up in the first third of the book. You're getting an education subtly by Crichton that you don't realize, that gives you a foundation for being scared to death of these things. And he called me up like at 6:30 the next morning, said, I couldn't put it down, I'm in.
Wow.
There's no director that commits to a book without a script. And he said, I'm in. I said, are you in all the way? He said, yes. The guy had giant cojones.
Wow.
And we got a writer, and we put it together, and needless to say, it's one of the biggest hit franchises of all time.
And for every one of those, how many are there that don't pan?
Well, the movie business is like the tech business. You get one hit, and it services 25 misses.
Right.
And misses go, Dave, from big to small. Yeah. Sometimes they're medium and they're okay.
Bit of a power law.
Yeah. And we were very lucky. We did over 300 films, and they were all in one way or another successful.
Wow.
From small things like Stand By Me or Gandhi to big things like Ghostbusters and Stripes and Jurassic Park and Tootsie and
I mean, the fact that you just
Casino.
said Stand By Me is a small thing. I mean,
Well, it was a tiny movie.
Wow.
And
Big impact.
I
it's a
didn't
big impact, yeah.
I didn't put it together. Norman Lear paid $10 million to Rob Reiner to make it. Rob was my client forever and one of the great guys in the business. And they got turned down by every studio, so they had no distributor. So Norman was going to eat the money.
Wow.
So basically, they knew I could sell it. So I put it on the back of Ghostbusters. So when I gave Ghostbusters to Columbia, to Frank Price, who just passed away, we had this amazing relationship. I sold Frank Price Stripes and Ghostbusters from a payphone at Paramount Pictures because they turned it down. They turned Ivan Reitman down with me in their office when he pitched them Three Guys Running Around Manhattan. And they turned down Bill Murray in the Army.
Wow.
And that's all we pitched them.
Yeah, yeah.
And I called Frank Price. I said, I now have the right to these two ideas. And he said, I'm in. And that's all I needed. There was no contract. There was no nothing. We made both.
It was a
movies.
handshake.
All right.
It was a handshake.
We
got to CA.
Yeah,
You went
in
to
terms
CA.
of becoming Michael Ovitz, right? Like you changed the entire power dynamic in the movie industry. Tell us about that.
I mean, yeah, and start anywhere you want. But
Yeah.
I mean, we talked to all these people, we read all these books. CAA is more than simply just another agency or a
Right.
paradigm. It is.
You changed the game.
I mean, frankly, you were talking about Marc Andreessen, who I've had a chance to get to meet. Mark modeled Andreessen Horowitz after CAA, around CAA. That business model, the way he thought about it. Walk us through, for example, first of all, why you decided to take the jump from William Morris to do it on your own, because that was ballsy.
Well, that was actually much simpler than one would think. There were weekly staff meetings at William Morris. They were an amazing business. They had a problem that all businesses have, that some businesses handle better than others, which is they had a problem called succession. The older guys just didn't want to let go. And it's not an older guy's
Was that control? It was a control issue, or was that they just didn't think they'd ever have to leave?
No, it's they just didn't want to bring the young people up. And also, they ran a business, and it worked well for them. Everyone was a silo. And while I was working there, I was the assistant to the president, which was by design. I manipulated it. I knew as a mailroom guy, I went into the mailroom. I got the job on my own. I walked in off the street. I didn't know anybody. And I tried to do something arrogant and flamboyant to get their attention. I figured I had to do something theatrical. It's a theatrical agency. And I said to the HR guy, I said, I'd like to be in the training program. He said, it's 3 years. There's a waiting list a mile long. I said, look, I'll make you a deal. Let me in the training program. I'll learn everything there is to learn about the agency business in 3 months. If I can't, you have all my salary back. He said, I'm going to hire you. You're the most arrogant young guy I've ever met.
That's wonderful.
We call it chutzpah. He can call it arrogance,
Well,
but it's
he
chutzpah.
wasn't.
Yeah,
He-
he wasn't Jewish.
We had nothing to lose.
His name was Chuck Booth. He was not Jewish. He said to me, you're in. So I started the next Monday. And it was so simple, frankly, guys. It was not complicated.
You showed up early, you left late.
Yeah. I mean, I got there at 7. Everyone else showed up at 9.
funny.
They'd all leave at 6. I stayed till 10.
Perfect.
Right.
And
We would do the same thing.
Yeah.
they couldn't understand it. And I realized that the president of the company went out every night with the founder for dinner at 6 o'clock to the Hillcrest Country Club. And what I realized, because I stayed late reading everyone's files, that he came back to do his mail at 8 o'clock. Yeah, and he was single. So I put a bunch of files on the front desk that he had to walk by every night. Like clockwork, I'd say 4 or 5 nights in, my phone rings at that desk at 9 o'clock at night. Sam Weisbord here. I said, Michael Ovitz here, what can I do for you? He said, could you come into my office? I was there in a heartbeat. He said, I need X, Y, and Z. Can you get it for me? He never said, what are you doing there? He kind of knew what I was doing there. And the minute he did that, that was the beginning for me, because I knew I had a foothold. Yeah. And I stayed there till midnight that night. He left at 11. I rearranged his refrigerator. I took his stock quotes, because in those days you had to write them down on a mimeograph. You know what mimeographing is?
No.
So it's so funny you guys don't know that. Pre-fax, you would type a stencil with a typewriter, and then you'd put it on a machine called a mimeograph, and you'd hand crank it, and copies would come out. It was like a printing machine. Amazing. So you'd mimeograph his stocks once a week, and then you'd have to write in what they closed at.
But they weren't real time, right? So it was like just the end of the day, and then
it was end of the day.
Yeah, okay, right.
They were real time for the day.
Got it.
He wasn't a trader. He was a.
He just wanted to know how he was doing.
Yeah, I did that. I rearranged his desk. I took calls that came into him. Time is the enemy of every agent. I took calls and I handled them as a principal, having no idea what I was doing. But I took them off as
just adding value, just tons of value.
Oh, that's gutsy. Yeah. I mean, it's one thing to rearrange his fridge. It's another thing to field the call. I mean, Michael Ovitz, the agent, even though you're a mail
Next thing I know, I get asked to be his assistant.
Wow.
I'm 22 years old.
Incredible.
And I'm sitting there in his office 12 hours a day. I have every piece of information flowing through that company, coming through him, in a company that's siloed. Mm-hmm. So I'm at the apex with him. Yeah. I'm reading his mail. I'm taking care of everything for this guy. Everything. I made sure his car was clean. There was nothing in his life I didn't take care of. And he had an assistant for over 20 years. He moved her to a different place and put me at her desk.
I'm sure she loved that.
And within 6 months, he made me a full agent. And I did there what I did at CA. I looked at the business and I said, what's a place that they're not generating income that they should be? And I found a niche that they missed, which was daytime television, which paid like clockwork, huge volumes of money, daytime and late night. And for me, it spawned a run of selling dozens of game shows that yielded millions of dollars of commission, 50 weeks a year, not the normal 22 shows. And it set me up for David Letterman and all the things I did later at CA, where I created a slot for Letterman.
And did the president know how great you were doing at that point?
No,
You were the guy.
The young guy.
Young guy, because you're still in your early 20s.
And then I'm sitting in meetings listening to what's going on. And there was one meeting that I've written about, so I'll do it very quickly, that blew my doors off. It made me question what I was doing. I thought I'd run that company. That was my goal. Okay. And my boss, Sam, announced that he had just signed a woman named Ann Miller, who was a New York song and dance woman who had no future. And our competitor had just signed Robert Redford and Paul Newman and George Roy Hill and every major person on the planet, and they were killing it. And we're announcing as William Morris this 75-year-old company, Ann Miller. And I walked out and I saw a bunch of young guys talking, and we all looked at each other and we were all nauseous. That was the beginning of the end.
Did you feel like that William Morris, they were becoming soft dinosaurs?
William Morris, I would walk by a guy named Joe Rivkin's office, who sole job, because he was close to 70, would sit and read the newspaper every day, and we're all bleeding for time, right? Yeah. And he's reading the Herald in the afternoon.
Yeah. They were just getting sloppy and lazy.
Yeah. And then they hired a guy that used to be a big deal at MGM, and they would take care of older people, which we did too, but we did it differently. We didn't put them into operating positions.
But your mind wasn't 100% made up at that point. I remember something about learning a lesson about people aren't really out until they're out. Talk to us a bit about that, like how William Morris reacted.
Yeah, I spoke to this and I wrote it in my book. They could have kept me because I wasn't sure.
You could have built what you did CAA at William Morris.
If I thought I could change their mindset, and I was young enough to, they could have kept me.
Did you remember that later in life when perhaps the tables were turned?
What do you mean?
Well, where you had to deal with the young up-and-comer
Oh
whippersnappers.
yeah. Are you kidding? I never signed a client that I didn't turn over to someone. The success of CAA was in the thesis of one, everyone shared every piece of information. Two, you can't lie about anything. People in media all lie. The biggest lies are in the music business because it's part of their culture. They don't tell the truth. The second biggest lies are in the movie business because it takes 2 years to put a movie together. You got tons of time to lie. And there's no lying in television because every Thursday something changes and SAG pays you. So by rules you get paid. No lying in TV. Hundreds of millions of dollars on handshakes. No lying, no lawsuits.
You were being paid pretty well, I assume, in William Morris.
No, I was being paid nothing.
I
remember.
So the opportunity cost of you leaving to start CAA
was zero.
Was very low.
I did.
And you were a young guy.
I generated multi-millions of commissions. They gave me a $7,500 bonus.
Boy, they really screwed it up.
And I did the opposite at CAA. We gave more money than anyone could get elsewhere by a factor of 4. And cost me, but man, I slept well at night. And I'll tell you something that I told someone a couple months ago at dinner, at a business dinner. I said that we never had a contract with a client or an agent. Not one.
That's across all of CAA?
Yeah.
You never had a contract?
No, because here's the thing about contracts. One, they're worthless. Two,
meaning you can't sue against them.
Well, if you're an artist and you have a contract, you have outs. If you don't work for 90 days, the guild lets you out. Right. And secondly, my clients never knew they had a contract anniversary date to get pissed off about. The agency business is all about people, and people get angry if something doesn't work.
And your contract was basically the fact that you were producing for them. That's the contract.
But our goal was to deliver, not deliver hot air.
Yeah.
Agents were phone order guys. My thesis was, I don't want a phone order. We'll give the orders.
Yeah.
So we'll reverse the paradigm. Instead of fielding offers for clients, we're going to create things for them. I created a department that did nothing but develop ideas. That's all we did. And then we started passing them out to clients.
It's like Skunk Works, like at a tech company.
It was.
So rather than the studio saying, we need an actor for this, you go to the studios and you're like, no. This is what you're going to make, and here's the actor, and here's the director.
Here's the script, and here's the director,
exactly.
Here's the producer.
Well, we had so many great, talented clients that it seemed to me to be stupid to be selling them. Plus, I made a rule. We based the company as a literary agency, so all the talent agencies said talent agency. We said at the top of ours, literary and talent agency. I wanted everyone to think we were word-based. So we started with about 400 writers. We kept signing writers. And what I realized was the directors and the actors all wanted the same thing, written words. You can't make anything without it. You can't even budget it. You can't do anything. So we started becoming a literary agency at the beginning, and actors then came to us. The goal from day one was to reverse the flow. So it's kind of like when you run out of gas and you stick a hose in a tank and you suck the hose and you kind of, all the gas comes out.
Yeah.
So in 7 years, we went from salespeople to buyers. And the economy was so good, I realized we didn't need any money. We could speak for the buyers because they needed the product. So if, I remember in the early 80s, I had dinner the other night and I was seated next to Lorne Michael, who's one of the greats. And when I was a kid, Lorne and I started together. So we were reminiscing about the early 70s.
Good Canadian guy like us.
Great guy. And we were, he says about like he does. So we were reminiscing about the old days in the 70s. That's 50 years ago. And Lorne and I were just laughing so hard. And Mike Cavanaugh, who now runs NBC, was there. And we were laughing how I used to come in my suit as an agent and I was a nothing and Lorne was a nothing producer. And I used to cover the shows. And we were laughing about the fact that when he started Saturday Night Live, it was not a hit.
Interesting.
And I said to myself, I watched it, and I'll never forget this as long as I live. I'm watching it in bed with my wife. It's on at 11:30. And I go to her, I go, oh my God, this is kind of scripted, kind of not scripted, and it's brilliant. The next day I went out, I signed everyone in the cast.
Wow.
And I started.
Yeah.
Bill Murray, John Belushi, Dan Aykroyd, who I love to this day, Gilda Radner, Chevy Chase, everybody.
And this is like some upstart at the time, right? Like, yeah, this is an upstart. Like this is
They weren't a hit.
right.
Yeah. So
And-
it was a massive risk.
Like,
I got
this
an
took a lot of
article
vision.
written
Yeah.
in the New York Times, one of many, or LA Times, I don't remember which, saying I was an idiot. It may have been Variety,
Yeah.
that I signed all these unknowns, telling them I'd put them in movies. What am I going to do with them? And it's part of my upbringing being Jewish.
I'm sensing a theme. Like when the world says Michael Ovitz is an idiot, bye.
You tell me I can't do something.
Yeah.
That is a challenge
Yeah.
to me. Tamara said to me, we were in Paris 3 months ago, and we passed by this boutique. She said, I've been trying to get one of those things, and I can't get it. It's been a year. I challenge you to get it.
She knew exactly what she was doing.
And I delivered it 3 days ago.
He did?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Who was your first client?
Who
was your first client?
very first client?
Like you leave this thing, you're like, you got a phone
client
and nothing
at
else.
CA.
It's a very prescient question because it's what led me to Saturday Night Live. I'm watching the Lohman and Barkley show, a local LA show at 11:30 on a Saturday night.
Okay.
And I see a guy who calls himself the roller skating rabbi.
Oh my God.
And his name was Barry Levinson.
Okay.
And I went and called him the next day, said, you don't know me, I don't know you. I think you're friggin' hysterical. And I signed him as a writer, actor. Barry Levinson, when he won the Academy Award for Rain Man, thanked me and recalled that moment.
Wow. And Dustin Hoffman also won the Academy Award, who also was a client,
Yes.
and also thanked you.
But
Is he one of your first, Raymond?
Levinson,
Yeah, Levinson, yeah.
Hoffman and Connery were my two first movie stars. Wow. And I spoke at Sean's memorial in Edinburgh a year ago. It was very,
Wait, Dustin Hoffman was one of your first clients.
yeah,
Connery.
I met him at a guy's house named Mike Medavoy, who I quite like, who was running one of the movie companies, and I went to a dinner. I was a young guy with nothing. We had started CA, I think I was 27 or 8, and Dustin was there, and I got friendly talking to his wife, who was a lawyer. And I started talking to Dustin, and I asked if we could have a meeting, and
What'd
he
you
said,
see in
okay.
him? Was there a spark? I mean,
Oh, please, the guy's genius.
okay. You just saw it right away.
The guy's a genius. The guy turns himself, he's a chameleon, he can be anything. And he'd already done the Mike Nichols movie.
Okay.
So it's not like I was discovering anybody. I mean, please, he had done The Graduate.
Yeah, yeah.
So he was as important as you could be. He beat out 100 actors for that role. Anyways, I sat with him and I said, look, I don't have the portfolio that these other companies have. I don't have big movie stars. I will kill for you. The whole company will get behind you. There were probably 30 of us. I said, but most importantly, I will work for free. He said, what? I said, yeah, no commission unless I deliver a movie to you and unless you think I did a good job. Your decision. I don't want anything. And he said, okay.
I mean, how does William Morris even compete with that type of offer?
So
I mean,
he
that's
said,
part of, I guess,
okay.
what the pitch was.
And we had an amazing run together. And I put Tootsie together.
And that was your first package, right? Where you bring it all together.
It was one of them. We had a lot,
Okay.
but it was one of them.
I mean, it reminds me, one of the best quotes I heard about you was from, probably one of the greats of all times, Jerry Seinfeld, where he's like, I have a 95 Ovitz. They don't make them like that anymore.
So I just ran into him at a dinner. We were having lunch at a place called Coco's here, and Jerry was sitting at the next table. And Jessica, and she kept texting me because I had sat next to her at a dinner party. And I am trying to not be impolite, and I thought she was at home. And then I hear, Ovitz, Ovitz! And I look over, and Jerry and Jessica are sitting at the next table with a bunch of people. And I said, Jerry, to this day, I never forgot, because he had another line. When I left, he said, I got the last Ovitz. And he reminded me of it at that thing. Great guy.
There's a story that Dave told me over dinner last night about a particular writer who you came to meet with in New York who didn't want to sign, but he allowed you to call him every Thursday. What was
There wasn't a writer.
Okay.
So it was a writer's agent.
Okay. Tell me about that.
So there was a guy who passed away a couple of years ago named Marc Janklow. He was a lawyer and built a business in the 70s of representing all the authors to the publishers. And as you know, New York is where all the center of publishing in the world. And he built this extraordinary business, had everybody. Sidney Sheldon, Judith Krantz, all the pulp writers, Michael Crichton.
Oh, wow.
And he had a amazing business. And I went to see him, and he was just very sweet, but incredibly dismissive of me. And as I'm leaving,
Any reason why he was dismissive of you?
yeah, because I was a Zippo nothing.
Okay.
And if you're not something in entertainment,
You're not.
it's why it was shocking to people when I said we don't lie. And I fired people for lying. I fired an agent when I walked into her office and her back was to me and she was facing the window. And I heard her bold-faced lie to a client on the phone. And I fired her right there. I had her walked out of the building. Wow. We don't lie. And I said to Mort, first of all, when I went into a meeting in those days, I took my watch off, I put it on the table. I asked for 10 minutes, and I watched the watch, and at 10 minutes I left, no matter what, unless
Be
they...
respectful.
Yes, because no one has time. So my 10 minutes was up with Mort. I said, Mort, I'm going to convince you, and I'm going to call you every Thursday at 10 o'clock, New York time, hell or high water. And for 11 and a half months, I called Mort Janklow at 7 a.m. LA time. It didn't matter where I was. Didn't matter if I was with my kids. Didn't matter if I was at a school function. Didn't matter if I was in Europe. At 7 a.m. on Thursdays, I called Mort, including Christmas week, Thanksgiving week. Thanksgiving's on Thursdays, I called Mort.
That's 50 phone calls.
Every week. Finally, in the 51st week, Mort calls me, and he said, you are amusing. He said, and you're diligent, and you're crazy. I'm going to give you a book to represent. I said, that's all I've ever asked for. Sends me a book. It's called Chiefs. And I give it to Bill Haber, who was my partner, who was a brilliant guy. He was as good as any studio executive at analyzing a piece of material. He reads the book, I read the book, we talk about it, we discover the book's been saturated through the system. Everyone's turned it down. And Bill and I sit down, what are we going to do here?
This is your shot.
And we said, we have no choice but to package something that everyone's going to change their mind on. We did it. We put Charlton Heston in it, who was big at the time. We put a director in it who was a big TV director, who was Bill's client. And we went back and we got a deal from NBC for a 6-part miniseries. And I called Mort, and he was in a state of shock. Incredible. I said, Mort, we have an offer on Chiefs. He said, no, you don't. It's not possible. I was turned down by everybody. I said, Mort, send in that money your way. We got every book from him to this day.
Yeah, I mean, but you're calling him. Was he like, Michael, stop calling me? I mean, these are 50 phone calls later.
No.
Because he respected the hustle, I think,
Yeah.
right?
He was moved by it.
Yeah, he was just moved by
We
it.
became thick as thieves.
Sure, after that.
Because it shows
sure,
conviction.
But let me tell you what I did for him. Our competitor, ICM, had a genius book.
Just to set the stage. So the biggest one at the time was William Morris, and then ICM, and then CAA. Is that
No, we weren't even in the 3.
you weren't in top 3 at this point?
Nah,
Okay.
not even close. There were 10 other agencies.
Okay, so you were the long tail.
Yeah,
Okay.
so there was a woman named, a woman who worked at ICM who was an amazing agent, book agent. And Her name was Lynn and Nesbit. She was top of the line and giving Mort a lot of competition. So I called her up, asked her for lunch. Of course, she said yes. Took her out to lunch, and by the end of lunch, convinced her that she should leave ICM and merge with Mort Janklow. I had never talked to Mort. I leave lunch, I get in my car. I had one of the first car phones. It was a radio phone.
Cool.
Nice.
And it had a big giant radio in the trunk.
Cool. What kind of car was it? Do you remember what the kind of car it was?
Yeah, we all had Jaguars.
Jaguar was the thing.
Couldn't afford them, got Jaguars intentionally, put CA on the license plates to tell everybody that we'd made it. It was bullshit.
And it was a CA1, CA2 kind of thing?
No, it had our initial.
Okay, got it.
And we did that to show people how much money we had. We had none. But
Fake it till you make it.
we faked it good. I called Mort. I said, Mort, got a great idea for you. He said, what? I said, who's your biggest competition? He said, hands down, Lynn Nesbit. I said, let's put you two together. He said, why? I said, because she's going to merge with you. He said, it'll never happen. I said, let's just have lunch. He said, great. So I go to New York. I take the two of them to lunch. They hit it off great. 3 weeks later, she quit. Joined, it's now Janklow and Nesbit, still to this day, 35 years later.
Wow.
They were a powerhouse, and they were our powerhouse.
Right.
And you put it together.
Put it together.
And they both know you put it together. Therefore,
You know, Harley, I'm going to explain something.
Yeah.
I package anything I see. Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter. I'd package you two guys together if I thought you had rapport.
Yeah.
I try to put people and ideas and money together, and that's what Horowitz and Andreessen said to me, get to the Valley, because that's what we do. And when I did the Fortune interview, they said, how did you do this? I said, I started over. I did 400 meetings in my first 12 months. I met with everyone from Zuckerberg to young people you've never heard of. Mark put dinner parties together for me where I met Peter Thiel, who I'm still friends with, Reid Hoffman, everybody. And I introduced myself to that community with no ego at all. And the nice thing about it is it was very different than entertainment. It was substantive.
yeah.
Those people do something. Entertainment people, and I say this openly to anyone, the top 10% of the entertainment business, some of the smartest, most creative human beings you've ever met. Bottom 10%, some of the sleaziest. And the rest roll between the top and the bottom. In the Valley, as you know, because you started a business, you got to be pretty good.
People,
You get called
the
out.
barrier, the floor is much higher. For sure.
You get called out really fast.
Yeah.
So for me, I went up there with no ego, no games, no manipulation, none of the tools of the trade of being an agent. Not selling anybody anything except myself. And relationship. And I spent years doing things for people for nothing.
Can you learn that? Like, is that your? I mean, clearly your superpower is spotting talent and packaging it together.
I want to stop you, dude. I don't think I have any superpower.
Interesting.
And I'll tell you something else that I think I'm very open about this.
Yeah.
I said it at the Fortune. I said it in another Patrick O'Shaughnessy's podcast. I have no talent, so I can't paint.
No talent.
I can't paint, can't sculpt, can't write, can't direct. I'm a terrible actor. I left multiple sets I was asked to come on, and I'm scared to death of a camera. I have no talent, so I can't code. So all I can do is put things together. I'll tell you what, one talent I have some weird God-given gift to meet interesting people and decide if they're worthy of my time. And I'm never wrong, ever. And
Maybe that's taste, you know?
no, I don't think it's taste, because I had to learn taste. When you're 17 and you've never seen a painting, and you don't know Picasso from Modigliani, you don't have any taste. My first apartment when I was a kid had all Mediterranean style furniture from a local junkyard. If I looked at it today, I'd throw up. But I learned to have taste. I learned to look at art. I learned pattern recognition. It's funny, I mentor a bunch of young people, collectors. They all want to know what to read. I say nothing. Just start looking at images and your brain will index it for you. You'll see what you'll like. But I have no talent. I can't do anything. I can't do anything productive or something that I could get paid for. My friend, the artist Cecily Brown, she said, I was in her studio once and I said, it's so amazing, out of nothing, a blank canvas comes something that's so moving. She says, oh, you could do that. I said, no, I really can't. She handed me a brush. She said, lower left-hand corner. So I put a few strokes in. She said, that's good. I bought the painting. About a year ago, she had a show at the Dallas Museum of Fine Art. Opened her show, my painting was in the show. And I loved the fact she did it. And then I had my lawyer send her a letter telling her that I was the co-owner of that creator of that painting. I was going to sue her, which was a joke, obviously.
Of course.
But I don't have the ability to do that, and I respect that of people. I was on the phone with this young artist, Nicholas Party, and he's so full of ideas, and he thinks in color and thinks three-dimensional. I don't think like that. I think linear or circular. So there's no middle ground for me.
And yet you earn their trust immediately. I mean, which is hard to do.
Which even in itself is a bit of a superpower.
Of course
It's
it is.
This ability to create these relationships, to cultivate relationships. I mean, even just the people I've talked to about you, over the last 24 hours, they have a connection to you that is so much deeper than just someone they met at Sun Valley. There's something incredible about that. Is a superpower.
I'll tell you something interesting. I said, a friend of mine, a fantastic guy, got sued by a woman that claims that 35 years ago he ruined her career. Now, it wasn't sexual harassment. He ruined her career. He blocked her from growth. 35 years later, I got so upset that I went full speed into action on this. And he said to me, he said, the interesting thing about you is you're black and white. You're the world's greatest friend and the world's worst enemy. And that's me.
I mean, that's the Paul Newman quote, right? Your Mother Teresa and you're a barracuda. When you look at business today, relative to business in the 80s and the 90s, and frankly, even earlier than that, do you think it's really changed? I mean, obviously technology is different. We have new tools. But do you think at the fundamental core of business and entrepreneurship, the lessons and the strategies you used are the same?
I think that the world that you and I live in today, which is based in Palo Alto and San Francisco, has basically, because of the closed-mindedness of the media world. In 1992, I was a consultant to Andy Grove at Intel and helped him with his marketing. I don't know if you remember Intel.
Of course.
Sure.
No, I mean,
Intel inside.
Yeah. Also, Andy Grove's book is one of my favorite books on management.
So he asked me to write an endorsement for it on the back cover.
Crazy.
I respected that man enormously, and it was a different world.
High output management, is that right?
Sorry?
It was called high output management, I think.
No, I think his was only The Paranoid Survive.
Oh, so there's two books. There's also high output management too.
But anyways, we decided to do the CA Intel Media Lab in our building in Beverly Hills. And this was early 90s. And the goal was for Andy's company and our company, again, for CA to be thought leaders and explain what was coming down the pike to the city. Because I remember I hired the CFO of AT&T to come work at CA, and everyone thought I'd lost my mind. Not only did I not lose my mind, the guy was like a seeing eye dog to what was going on in tech. And Andy brought every conceivable piece of hardware made, every chip, every piece of technology from San Francisco and Palo Alto, and placed it in a room in our office and put 5 giant dishes on the roof. And we invited the city, not just our clients, which, by the way, put us in a position over every other agency because everyone wanted to be with us because we're doing cutting edge things.
For sure.
The business rejected the ideas. And today, Netflix, basically under Ted Sarandos, has disintermediated the business. They've changed viewer patterns, which people thought was not possible to do. They've taken the theater business away except for special movies. The experience is in home, everything's a flat fee, and everything's on streaming. And
You could have done the 92.
and we started that. And there's no, we didn't start that. We started
Well, this
trying
idea
to educate people. They didn't want to hear
What
it.
was it? It was like antibodies of the company?
No, it's a closed ecosystem.
They didn't want outsiders.
No, and the thing I learned when I started at the floor as a mailroom guy in technology in 1999 was multiple things. One, they didn't eat well. So I'd go to board meetings at Loud Cloud with Ben and Mark and bitch about the food because it was awful. Two, they didn't dress, so I'm wearing a suit, and they finally said, if you come in a suit again, we're going to kick you off the board. And three, they love learning, and they're open. Totally. If you've got an idea, they want to hear
It
it.
doesn't matter who you are, what your last name
They
is, where
don't
you come
care.
from. Idea stands on merit.
They don't care, and the nepotism thing doesn't exist.
Well, yeah, for sure.
Have the incumbents learned their lesson? Like, do you think that complete upending of the business by Netflix and others has made it so today's incumbents are just so much more sensitive to disruption?
I get a call a day from people that I used to deal with that are beside themselves.
Interesting.
There's no back-end participation in the entertainment business anymore. It's over. You don't get anything. If I package, when we put Jurassic Park out, we got Universal to distribute it because they didn't own it. We did.
Yeah.
Crichton gave me the book. We owned it on behalf of Crichton. And when we got Universal to distribute it, we made a deal. It was very simple. Put up the money for the movie, which was about $60 million. And every dollar that comes in after you get your 60 back comes half to us, half to you. That was unheard of, okay? And I'd say a couple $2 billion in profits have been made by our clients. If you did that movie today,
Yeah.
those same clients maybe would have gotten front fees from Netflix or Hulu or Disney of maybe 150, 200 million bucks. That's it. There's no place to sell the product.
Wow.
Once it's in the ether,
It's there.
it's there. He can pull it.
Yeah.
His kids can pull it off
Right.
the internet.
That's right.
Wow.
It's over. There's no video cassette. There's no HBO. There's no ABC, NBC, or CBS. There's no foreign. There's no Canal Plus in France. No Sky, and it's over.
Wow.
There's nothing. So I get these calls that are nauseating. I feel horrible for these people. I
But
don't.
also, you kind of saw this coming.
Well, that's why I got out. Everyone says, why'd you get out? I said, it's simple. I saw the train wreck coming. I probably got out 5 years too early, but I don't care.
Yeah.
The train wreck was on the way.
Yeah.
And those businesses are all in trouble.
So what's the solution? I mean, if people want to be entertained, the entertainers need to get paid. Like, how does
It's
it work?
another podcast.
Yeah, I want to ask something because we have a respect of your time here. Two things. First of all, we mentioned Bronfman family. One of the things Charles Bronfman told Dave and I is you have to be careful about picking your industry because the industry that may have been good previously doesn't mean it's going to be always going to be good. And this idea of actually looking at whether or not the thing you're betting on is going to have continuity or not, I think is really interesting. I mean, if you wanted to stay in the traditional entertainment industry, you no longer have a business today.
Well, it's interesting that he said that, and he's a very smart guy. I knew his brother.
Edgar.
Well, no, Charles.
Charles's brother was Edgar Sr.
Yeah, Edgar Sr.,
yeah,
but
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
thinking Edgar Jr.
Yeah,
Okay,
nephew.
he was a very nice guy, who I went to. Never met him in my life, ever.
Oh.
My dad was turning 65. He had worked for Seagram's for 35 years, and they were going to retire him. And I went to Edgar Jr. I called him up. I said, you don't know me. I don't know you. I would like 10 minutes of your time. He said, of course. I went, put my watch down on his desk. I said, Edgar, my dad's worked for you. He said, I looked at the file. I said, if you retire him, he's going to die. I believe that, by the way. I believe if you retire, you die. as a man or a woman, I think if you don't have something to get up for in the morning, it's over. And I said to him, I'm asking you as a personal favor, and I will owe you for the rest of my life. I'd like you to keep my dad on until he drops, and I'll reimburse you his salary.
Wow.
And if you do that, I'm indebted to you forever. And he said, consider it done, and you don't have to reimburse me.
Incredible.
And my dad stayed with him for another 16 years.
Wow.
And I ended up representing Edgar in buying Universal from Matsushita, because I had sold Universal to Matsushita. So it shows you how life moves in mysterious ways.
There's almost karma there.
But what Charles said is interesting. I didn't go into the entertainment because I loved entertainment. I went in because there were only 2 places to make money when I was a kid, and I didn't want to live in the San Fernando Valley as an adult.
Right.
And that's a big motivator.
Yeah.
And the only 2 places you could make any money in those days, in the 60s, was the entertainment business and being in the finance world.
Wall Street.
Wall Street. That was it. And I was too stupid at the time, and I mean stupid, because I live here now, and I switched my ratio between LA and New York. And I just love it. I've always come here half the year. But I love being a citizen here.
Yeah.
You know, I'm here.
There's something electric about it.
The energy's.
I get up in the morning and I take my dog for a walk at 7 and 6:30 in the morning, and I feel alive here.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to go to New York when I was 21. I didn't want to leave LA. I thought LA was the center of the world because that's how I was brought up. My dad thought it was, my mom thought it was.
You didn't know otherwise.
All my friends were there, my relatives were there, and I didn't figure this out until later in my life at CA that New York is when I went on the board of MoMA, I figured
That's when it worked.
And I when we gave that trustee party I was talking about, I told the story of going to MoMA at 18, and and David Rockefeller's son was there because he's a trustee, and he kind of welled up because I said that David kind of took the kid out of the valley and gave me an opportunity that I never would have had. And it was such an amazing thing to go to my first MoMA board meeting, knowing that it's where I discovered art at 18. And now I own a lot of art, and there's not a day that goes by that I'm not invested in looking at art, because it's my form of relaxation.
You know, last thing before we close, you know, David and I often talk about that us as Jewish entrepreneurs, we stand on the shoulders of giants like you. As we kind of hear your story, my final sort of note that I took for last night was there is one particular theme that keeps coming up across everything from the mailroom to CAA to going to the Valley, which is there's a work ethic that you have. You arriving early, staying late, cleaning the refrigerator. Dave and I, we're not, you know, our IQs are not, you know, we're not the smartest people in the world, but I think the reason we've been able to have some success in our life, nothing like you yet, but certainly to date, is because we give a shit and we work really, really hard.
Go the extra mile.
That's right. What is it about Jewish entrepreneurs or Jews in general that you think gives us this work ethic? What are we
First of all, I want to be clear. I'm happy to take your Shopify stock. Okay, so when you talk about not doing so well, I'd beg to differ with that at the price you're at. I've made a few bucks along the way. So, look, when I grew up, my best friend I had 2 best friends. One was Jewish, one was Catholic. Scorsese and I used to joke. I love that man. He's a devout Catholic. We'd say our mothers were the same. The guilt instilled in us was insane. Mm-hmm. The only thing that separated them was the cuisine they made. My mom made brisket and his mom made spaghetti.
Yeah, I prefer that. Yeah.
And we came up with this thesis. The only thing different between Catholics and Jews is one's guilty before the fact, the other's guilty after the fact. Ethnic people, for some reason in my mind, this is a broad generalization that you could pick apart, but ethnic people strive for a kind of challenge, you know? Mm-hmm. And it's a broad generalization, and it's probably not true, but a lot of my friends that were Catholic did incredibly well. They were supported by other Catholics, and my friends that are Jews are supported by other Jews.
Yeah.
This is going to sound so stupid, and I'm sure when it's published, I'm going to get just dumped on for this. But Jews kind of have been so oppressed over the years, even though now we're being accused of genocide and everything else, and everyone's forgetting that it's a country, not a religion. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying
It's confused.
it's confused
Totally agree.
at best. But I have to say, I've always felt I'm like in a club.
Right.
And I always view people of the religion, because it's so small, as having some tie to me. And I can't explain it because it's not intellectually accurate.
And we're not religious.
Yeah.
Which is-
But if,
Yeah, we all feel that way, right?
We all
it's
feel
this
that way.
It's this
We all feel
incredible thing. Like it's.
well,
yeah.
I'll tell you a weird thing, Dave.
Yeah.
I got into an incident about a year ago where someone suggested that I sue someone for something they did that was really wrong. And when I found out he was Jewish, I wouldn't do it.
Right.
There's no rhyme or reason. I just have this weird connection to people of the religion, and I'm not really ultra religious.
Neither are we. I do too.
But I raised my kids Jewish with fake names, you know, and 'cause
My best friends are Jewish. I didn't pick them. That's kind of how it happened.
well, I'm friends with a lot of people that are of all different races, religions. I've never chosen my friends by anything except are they smart.
Right.
If they're smart and they can hold my interest, I have a real problem, which I can't tolerate people that aren't bright, and I can't tolerate wastes of my time anymore, because my runway's limited, and I don't want to be with uninteresting human beings. I find it's got nothing to do with religion. My friends are all a smorgasbord, but I do find a kinship in the religion that I can't really articulate a reason for. It's like we kind of all come from this group that have just had the crap beat out of us from day one.
15 million people on the entire planet. It's an unbelievable number. It's
And
tiny.
it cracks me up when people make these statements that we control this, we control that. It's just not true. But we have that image of that. And I guess we also help propagate it, you know.
Well, we punch above our weight class.
Well, I think we all share that in common. I said to one of my young mentees who was so smart, and I think he's Armenian. I don't really know. He's one of those countries over there. I said, and I was at lunch with him, and I was on the phone with him last week, and I said, you know, I've got some really bad news for you. He said, what? I said, did you do 23andMe? He said, no. I said, you're so smart. You're so aggressive. You're so good. Somewhere in the family tree, one of your relatives slept with a Jew.
Well, we don't want to
Michael,
waste
this is
any more of your
amazing.
time and cross that threshold. Michael, thank you so much. It has
Thank
been
you,
a
Michael.
great honor. I hope you enjoyed this conversation
Thank you.
as much as we did.
I could talk for hours.
So can we.
Yeah.
Now the whole team hit. Started from the bottom.